All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here are doing our preview and prediction for the Mountain West Championship game between UNLV and Boise State. The winner of this game will be going to the college football playoff. Boise State, 4-point favorites. 58.5 is the total. 8 p.m. Eastern time on Fox from Boise, Idaho. Starting with the UNLV offense, Malik Williams, we thought that they upgraded at quarterback when he was named the starter when the original starter quit on the team. And it's a good thing he did, Nick, because this offense I thought got significantly better when Malik Williams took over. 17 touchdowns, only 4 picks this year passing. Only about 157 yards per game passing the ball, but this is a triple option style offense that is. He's ran it to perfection, 768 yards and 9 touchdowns rushing. They've certainly had some bumps in the roads throughout the year running the ball, but they've only lost 2 games since he took over, a shootout with Syracuse and then the first game against Boise by a couple of points. This is a team that's played a lot of very hard football. On the road at Oregon State was tough. At Hawaii is always a challenge. In the last 3 weeks, they've won by double figures, including a road trip to San Jose State where the weather was abysmal. So UNLV's a good team, Nick. They're incredibly battle-tested. I love their resilience, and they have a good leader here at quarterback.
They have a great leader at quarterback. We really wondered what would happen after Matthew Solka quit on the team after 3 games, and what was a really weird scandal that kind of, got swept under the rug because this team still just kind of continued to pick up wins with Malik Williams under center. He's been really good for this team. He's a great leader. He really took over that mantle and no issues. They plugged him in, had a lot of success. A lot of teams you could potentially see them maybe fall apart after what happened with the quarterback issue there, but not this UNLV team. They plugged him in and they started working immediately, and it really got to good football. 64% comp rate for Williams. 17 touchdowns passing to 4 picks, an 8.3% TD ratio on his passes. Really solid numbers. Also 768 on the ground, about 6 yards per carry, and 9 scores for him. That is on the ground. So he's a dual threat, a true solid quarterback, a really good passer as well. 206 attempts on the season, so they do throw the ball a fair amount. This team has some really good balance on offense through the air and on the ground. Of course, they do favor running the ball certainly with 254 yards per game, but 180 yards per game through the air is not a bad total either. This is a great offense led by a great guy who stepped up when he needed to, and he's really playing good football right now.
This passing attack hasn't been as great over the last couple of games. In the first meeting against Boise, 54% comp rate, 179. They had some big plays, though, against Hawaii, under 50% comp rate, only 175 yards. The weather was bad against San Jose State. That was still only 131 there. And then 168 against Nevada. So the production hasn't been eye-popping, but they're built off big plays. And Ricky White, he provides a ton of them. 75 receptions, 1,020 yards, and 11 touchdowns. This is going to be your go-to wide receiver, one of the top 10 talents in the country at the position. Jacob DeJesus is also really good. 456 and over 14 yards per catch this year. And then Jaden Bradley and Casey Kane will occasionally have a big play. And then I have a nice tight end, Khalil Bolingay. What do you think of this receiving group, Nick? Because it's not a team that is really predicated on efficiency through the air, but the big plays are staggering, and they had a good amount of those against Boise. They ended up dying out in the second half, but if they can establish a consistent rhythm throughout the air, they'll probably win this game.
They can certainly establish a consistent rhythm. They will find themselves in a good spot. Ricky White is such a fun player to watch. 75 grabs for 1,020 yards, 13.6 yards per grab, 11 touchdowns, 85 yards per game. So certainly a guy that gets a lot of targets, someone who's really involved in the offense and is really good. He also can be involved in several different aspects. Good player off the ball. Jacob DeJesus is really solid. 456, 14.3 yards per grab, and 2 scores for him. 32 grabs, so significantly less than Ricky White, but he's also a decent target. Jaden Bradley, Casey Kane get a few reps here and there, although they're not been involved as much as of late. The tight end is also pretty solid for this team with 6 touchdowns in the red zone, so they certainly use their tight end in the red zone. Obviously, the Ricky White show to DeJesus certainly helps him. Can you scheme against that and prevent that from working? Certainly, I think so, but we saw them have solid success in the first half against Boise State. Can they find a rhythm, keep that going throughout the entire game? I think it's certainly possible. I wouldn't count on it, but I think it can happen with the talent on this team.
And back to this rushing attack, Malik Williams, second on the team in yards, leads them in touchdowns. Jaden Thomas, the lead back with 832 and 7 scores. Kylan James and Greg Burrell are going to be the number 2 and 3 backs. They keep these guys pretty fresh in this triple option offense. They spread out the ball a good amount. They put up 254 rushing yards per game. This has been a great group over the last 4 contests. Before that, though, 188 against Oregon State and Boise State exactly. They had some nice efficiency on the ground, but overall, this is a team that wants to be pushing that 250-yard mark, Nick. And against Boise, this is a pretty stiff run defense. It's going to be hard to really expose them, but I think a balanced attack is probably going to be the approach here, or they might look to have 50-plus attempts and really grind it out. This will be an interesting game to see how that goes, but explosive plays, balanced attack, it's not going to be all about the rushing game, I don't think, in this game.
I think there will be a little bit of a balanced attack. Jaden Thomas is a really solid piece. 832 yards rushing, 6 yards per attempt, 7 scores for him. Kalen James is not bad either for this team. 521 and 4 scores. And obviously, Hajimalik Williams adds his own threat. They certainly favor the run this year, which has been very evident in the amount of attempts per game, which is roughly at 45 attempts per game compared to 21 pass attempts per game for this offense. So certainly, the averages certainly rely on running the ball. I think against this Boise State defense, you're going to have to go through the air. I don't think you can rely on running the ball to win this game. Can they find full balance? I think it's possible. They're going to have to try and find a way to scheme that up because this Boise State defense is a really solid unit.
Now we'll look at the Rebel O-line. A lot of people think it's the best one in school history, and I'd certainly agree with that. Left tackle Jalen St. John's been having a good year. At left guard, Anton Ampiula has also been very stout in pass protection. Jack Hazen at center, probably the weak link of this O-line. Maithis Sua at right guard is really good in pass pro. And then the best player is going to be Tiger Shanks at right tackle. Really good offensive line here to Nick. It's a physical unit, a lot of veteran leadership going on the road here to Boise. Shouldn't be too much of an issue for this O-line. But they're probably giving up some big plays. Negative plays, that is. What do you think about this offensive line coming into this game? I think they can go toe-to-toe with the Broncos.
Phenomenal unit. This is a great unit, one of the best in this conference. A really solid unit. Jalen St. John is an incredible player at left tackle, a really good player. The center is really solid for this team as well. I like what Sanks has been able to do at right tackle. I think the tackles are phenomenal on this team. The two of them are really good pieces. I like this offensive line. I think they can hold up well here against a good Boise State pass rush.
Now I move to the Boise State offense. We'll get to Ashton Jeanty specifically here in a moment, but I think one thing that he's definitely done is the impact of this rushing game. A lot of people look at his carries. You'll see 30-plus attempts for only 150 yards or something like that, where the efficiency is a little bit lower. People don't realize, Nick, that what his impact is that it allows this passing attack to really thrive because the play action against these loaded boxes has been tremendous. Maddox Madsen's having a great year. 3 interceptions, completing about 62%, 21 touchdowns, over 200 yards per game. The drop-back passing game's been pretty good as well. But their play-action attacks, sneaking guys into the flat, sneaking them into the middle of the field, it's been very good. And this is a quarterback that's had to do probably more than most when they have an elite running back like this. But people want to sit here and clown some of Gianti's efficiency, but they don't understand this impact has really opened up the passing game, Nick. Dirk Cutter, a phenomenal offensive coordinator, former NFL head coach. He knows what he's doing, and he's running this offense to a very high clip. What do you make of Maddox Madsen in another game here where he hasn't been perfect this year? He was pretty bad against Nevada a couple weeks ago. Wasn't all that great against Wyoming, but against Oregon State, he is putting on a bit of a show. The consistency isn't always there, but the impact, again, of this run game allows this passing attack to give free-flowing balance to the Broncos.
Ashton Jeanty is such a special player that you have to scheme for him. You have to load the box, which creates space on the outside, on the boundaries, and creates space all over the field for your passing attack because you're so focused as a defense on this absolute monster of a running back. You load the box over and over again. It creates opportunities for your passing attack for Boise State to really thrive. I think, people question whether or not Maddox Madsen was the right starter over Malachi Nelson, who would transfer into the program, but Madsen's having a good season and really looks comfortable in the pocket. 61% comp rate, 2,500 yards passing, 21 touchdowns to 3 picks, a really good ratio there, 6.3% TD percentage there. So solid numbers, right? This is a very accurate quarterback at times who looks good in the pocket. Yes, some of the games are a little bit weaker than others, but overall, I think he's having a really solid season for this team. They're able to throw the ball. They're able to use that sort of ability to use Jeanty as a sort of distraction. That's not really the right word, but use the offensive weapons out there that we're going to highlight here in a second. I think this passing attack is no joke, and obviously when you watch this Boise State team, you want to watch Jeanty, you want to see the star player that everyone's talking about, but this is still a really good passing attack that has some really solid pieces in it that could really elevate this offense, and you can put up a lot of points in a quick amount of minutes from this Boise State team. They can blitz you if you're not careful, and we saw that UNLV held them to only 29 points in the first meeting between these two teams. So the defense obviously had a little bit of success there, but if Jeanty starts having a good day, and then it really starts to puts the pressure off of Madsen, who can really create things through the air.
Yeah, I really like this receiving group as well. Matt Lauder, he's going to get a lot of targets in this game at tight end. 461 and 6 touchdowns. Cam Camper, the Indiana transfer, leading the way with 51 grabs for 811 yards. Latrell Caples has been a good receiver, 406 for him. Then Austin Bolt has 4 touchdowns as well. And back to the superstar in Gianti. This is a guy that's having a phenomenal season, one of the best you'll see in, really in college football history. 2,288 yards, 28 touchdowns. The last time he faced UNLV, though, this was his worst rushing performance of the year. I know he had 127 against Portland State, only saw 11 carries. He had 128 on 33 touches against UNLV. They kept feeding him the rock, and they started to grind him down a little bit. Got close to ripping off a few runs. Shoelace tackles brought him down, where he really could have opened this game up, Nick. But this is a great run defense they're facing. And the thing about Boise is they stay committed to what they do. You've seen it over the back half of this season where it's really hard for him to get going. Has 30-plus carries in every game since the 12th of October outside of the Wyoming game where he was able to rip off those big plays. When they don't have him, though, he's forced to be this beast. You remember Derrick Henry was getting 40 touches a game. That's pretty much what's happening here. He's still effective, though. He's a big bruiser. This is a guy that wears down defenses. They're going to stay committed throughout the game. You're going to see those touches.
Yeah, I have no issue with the amount of touches that he's getting, 310 on the season attempts. I have no issue with that, right? Give your best player the ball. I think it certainly makes a lot of sense. Like I said, you have to scheme for him. If you're a defense, you have to make sure you keep somebody on him. Try to load the box at all times. So this guy is just so good. The raw numbers are phenomenal. For me, he's my Heisman winner. Obviously that's not the debate we're having this episode, but for me, I think he's the Heisman winner over Travis Hunter right now because I just think the raw numbers are so impressive. 7.3 yards per carry, 190 yards per game are really phenomenal numbers you just don't see in this day and age. 28 touchdowns rushing, plus another one receiving, so 29 total touchdowns. Just numbers you don't really see anymore from a running back. He's such a must-watch television. I really hope this Boise State team gets in the playoffs because I want to continue watching him play, potentially against a stronger defense in the college football playoff. UNLV had some success against him. What they were doing in that game in Vegas was working as they held him to 130 yards, like you said. So certainly maybe that's the blueprint you want to follow again. But I think they're going to continue to rely on him. I think they're not going to avoid giving him the ball. I think even if he's having a slow day in the second quarter, they're going to give him 35, 40, 45 touches, whatever it's going to take to get him to get a solid amount of numbers and involve him in the red zone. I don't think they're going to abandon the run at all in this situation. If you can have success on the ground, you could maybe potentially spread it out a little bit, throw the ball, and add some variety to your attack. But I expect Chanty to get a lot of touches this game. I'm thinking north of 40, get him involved in the offense and really try to grind down this UNLV defense that does have success against good running backs. But I think if you really run the ball enough at them, eventually you'll find the success. And Chanty's just too good of a player to not find the success. I'm still thinking a big day for him here.
The offensive line's led by an elite player, left tackle Cage Casey. Ben Doley's having a good year at left guard. And at center, Zach Holmes hasn't allowed a sack this year. The right side's a bit of the weaker links. Tyler Kinafe at right guard, and the right tackle, Hale Schmidt, is probably their worst player. This is an offensive line that does a pretty good job. They don't allow too many negative plays, and they're pretty sound in pass protection as well. Moving to the UNLV defense, they've been great versus the run. One more strong effort will, potentially propel you to the CFP. They haven't allowed over 200 yards in the game this year. Kansas gave them some headaches early on in the year. That was all right. We talked about what they did the first time they saw Gianti, limiting Boise to 185 yards, and then nobody else in between's really had any type of success. This is a group that is kind of a makeshift unit up front. They don't have too many standouts on the D-line, but it's a nice by-committee group that plays hard. Antonio Doyle is going to be your best player. Alex Whitmore, Tato Martinson, Fisher Kamak, probably going to be your best defensive end, though. Keith Conley Jr. will get involved a good bit. It's a solid group here, Nick. It's a defensive line. It's a bit of a makeshift group, but these guys collectively play as a strong unit, and I think that's why they have so much success against the run, and I think they'll have success for the most part in this game. Can they limit those big plays, though? I think that will be the ultimate question, a team that does have 36 sacks as well, so this is a good defense.
This is a good defense. They're going to have to find a way to limit the big plays. Antonio Doyle, 49 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 5 sacks for him. Alexander Whitmore's been solid for this team, 32 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, while Tattoo Martinson's been solid as well, 17 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Keith Connolly has 13 total tackles and 3 sacks as well. Lucas Conti's okay at rotational reps of 9 total tackles and a tackle for loss. This defensive line's got to be strong. They had success against Janty previously. I think it's certainly possible to have success again here. This unit gets a couple of good sacks here and there. If they can put pressure on Madsen, they can be in line for a decent day.
In the middle of this defense is a big reason why they're so good against the run. Jackson Wooder is a superstar, 114 tackles, 17 TFL. He also has 4 picks and 9 pass breakups. This guy is as good as it gets. He's like I just said, he provides a lot in coverage as well. Phenomenal player, great against the run. He's a big reason why they have so much success in all regards on defense. Manai Powell next to him has also been a productive linebacker. This is a great LB group, Nick. I love what they have here. Powell's not as good as in coverage. Woodard, though, he's going to have opportunities to make plays against these tight ends. They're going to be leaking out, and this guy can single-handedly flip the script for UNLV.
You laid out the stats there for Woodard. Such a talented player, 100-plus tackles for him. 17 tackles for loss is a great number. Really good in coverage with the 9 pass breakups. Solid numbers across the board. Powell is really good as well. 56 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. I think the 2 rotational pieces, Fisher Carmack and Marcel McDuffie, are 2 solid pieces. McDuffie's been battling some health concerns this year. Carmack's been really good for this team, though, in rotational reps. 36 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 4 pass breakups. A good coverage asset when he's subbed in. A really good linebacking unit. 3 solid pieces there that I think can really elevate this defense. I really like this linebacking core. Best part of this defense.
I moved to a secondary. I think it's pretty good. They've given up almost 3,000 yards this year, but it's hard-fought yards when they play opponents. Utah State ran up some numbers playing from behind. Kyle McCord had a great day when they played Syracuse. 2 passing attacks that showcased a lot of volume, though. Boise in the first matchup had good success. I thought they threw the ball very well, mainly in the first half. 17 interceptions, that was the standout number here. Just as a group that creates, it starts with Jalen Catalon, the safety transfer from Arkansas and Texas. The guy is tremendous, having an elite season. You look at corner, Tony Grimes having a pretty good year after a bumpy start to his college career. And then Cameron Oliver, he's been by far the best corner, especially in coverage. He's a much better run defender. There's a couple of pieces right there to get things started. And Jonathan Baldwin is another phenomenal asset for this team. He's going to play a lot of slot for them, while Jet Elad will be the counterpart for Catalan at safety. This is a great secondary, Nick. Again, the only teams that really have success are volume passing attacks, and those are in games that feature a lot of points. It's not because the secondary is bad at all. This is a great unit.
This is a great secondary. I think they're a really solid unit that puts up good numbers, a lot of interceptions. Catalan's are really good. 82 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 5 picks, including one they took for a touchdown, 3 pass breakups. A really solid asset there. Jet Elad's really solid as well. 68 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups plus a pick. Jonathan Baldwin's been really good. 60 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 3 picks, 9 pass breakups. Cameron Oliver has 9 pass breakups, 29 total tackles, while Jarvis Ware and Tony Grimes each have 5 pass breakups, 20-plus tackles for Ware, 17 for Grimes, and then Malik Chavez has been solid at times as well, 24 total tackles and a pass breakup. This is a good secondary unit. They get tested a fair bit. They go against a lot of good passing attacks so far this season. They've stood up for the most part. Yes, they had issues against Kyle McCord and Syracuse, but that's a really high-flying passing attack. I like what this unit can do. I think they can shut down, potentially at times, this Boise State passing attack. Good odds there, good unit overall. I like the secondary a lot.
Now you look at a Boise State defense, one that's also pretty good. They're great against the run. They're only giving up 106 yards per contest, held them to 188 in the first matchup. No one else has really had any success. They played Oregon early on in the year, held them to 109 yards. That's the only time all year they've given up over 150 was against UNLV, who had 36 attempts. So this is a stout run defense, Nick. I know they certainly haven't played the toughest of opponents, but I guess when I just mentioned the Ducks, it kind of cancels that out. And forgives any weaknesses that they have played. Ahmad Hazain off the edge. He's going to be their best player here. This guy's an incredibly productive edge rusher, pretty good run defender as well. Jaden Virgin Morgan as well. He's also been a productive player, leading them in tackles for loss. Other than that, it's a rotational defensive line. Herbert Gums, Braxton Feely, Michael Callahan, Sheldon Newton. There's a handful of different guys that get involved here. It's really the 2 edge rushers, though, that are the standouts in the defensive line. On the interior, really rallies around those 2 guys, Nick. What do you make of this group here that does have a few standouts, but maybe a few weaker players, but kind of like UNLV, a cohesive group?
A cohesive group that's got some solid pieces. Ahmad Hassanin is really solid for his team. 40 total tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks. He's obviously a really good leader. And then Jaden Virgin alongside him is really great as well. 34 total tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. Really good numbers there. 2 productive pieces on the defensive line. Braxton Felly is really solid. 21 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. While Herbert Gums has been a good player in reps for this team. 19 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. Sheldon Newton, Michael Callahan, and Max Steege all have a couple tackles for loss and a couple sacks between those 3 pieces there, about in the teens and tackles for all 3 of them. Solid rotational pieces there. I think this is a good defensive unit. I like what this defensive line can do in this 4-2-5. It's a good physical unit led by those 2 key players in Hassanin and Virgin, who are really strong pieces on the defensive line.
18.5 sacks between those 2. 45 as a team. That puts them second nationally. I mean, that's no fluke of a number. That means they can really get after it. They had some success in that regard in the first matchup as well. Middle of their defense, though, it's not as stout. This linebacking group coming into the year, we kind of noted, was not going to be all that great. Andrew Simpson, though, is productive. He also has double-figure tackles for loss. Marco Notarani, 53 tackles for him. He's having a solid year. The middle of this group, though, they're not really set up to get too exposed. I think Simpson's a good enough leader, and they're good enough against the run. These two backers to make enough plays. They aren't the most efficient tacklers, and they're not the greatest in coverage, but they're not bad either. So even though this isn't exactly a standout linebacking group, they get the job done. Are you worried about how they'll perform in this matchup, Nick, where they have not shown many flaws all year long?
Yeah, when you were looking at potential group of 5 teams make the playoff, Boise State was a team talked about in the preseason. You said one of their big weaknesses that could prevent them from getting the playoff was this linebacking core that's just a little bit weak. Notarani is a decent tackler, 53 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, 3 pass breakups, while Simpson is a better coverage asset, 39 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a pick, and 3 forced fumbles. Really good at getting the backfield as well. Decent pieces, but definitely the weakest part of this team, in my opinion. This is a weak positional group. Got to have a big day out of Simpson. He's got to probably get a good tackle for loss in there. Got to be decent in coverage as well. I do worry about this unit, but I think they had some success against UNLV in their previous matchup. I think they'll be okay in this game, but that's something to keep your eye on for sure.
Now we look at the Boise State secondary, and I think this one is also a bit of a weaker group. You've seen a couple weeks ago against San Jose State. They were giving up a lot of big plays, ended up giving up 446 in what was a competitive game for almost the entire duration of that contest. Nevada had more success than you were accustomed to seeing them have through the air. Oregon State took them till the second half, but they started to finally get things going. Secondary isn't that great, Nick. They're giving up about 258 yards per game. They only have 6 interceptions on the year, so they're not even close to generating turnovers like the Rebels do. Marion McCoy, though, at corner, he's a great player, at least in coverage. He does have 17 missed tackles, isn't great against the run, which is not good because this is a team that obviously they're going to run the ball a lot. Jeremiah Irby, a nice veteran player. He's much better against the run, much better tackler. And then Devon Banks will get on the field a good bit as a pretty consistent player. You look at your slot man, Ty Benefield. He's going to be the best player here in the secondary. He's pretty consistent in most regards. Sayai Aladapo as well. Rodney Robinson, he'll get on the field a lot. He's pretty stout in coverage. Doesn't really stand out anywhere else. And then Zion Washington plays a lot of free safety for them. He's been a bit of a disastrous player as well. 19 missed tackles. So there's guys here they can expose, Nick. And I certainly hope that Barry Odom and Brandon Marion are going to look to target these guys because these are winnable matchups for this ground attack.
Ty Benefield's probably the best player on this defensive side of the ball. 65 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 picks, 3 pass breakups for him. Zion Washington's been a bit of a mess this year. 56 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 6 pass breakups. Amarion McCoy has been really good in coverage. Probably their best pure coverage asset. 55 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pick 6, and 13 pass breakups. Good numbers there. Saya Odelipo is solid as well. 53 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups. Alexander Turnbender, 49 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups. Rodney Robinson, good in coverage as well. 39 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 3 pass breakups. And Devon Banks and Jeremiah Irby have a couple pass breakups and interceptions between the two of them, about 30 tackles each for those two pieces. The secondary concerns me a little bit. I think this UNLV passing attack can have success if they have a good day, if they're firing on all cylinders. I think I like what they have in those 2 star receivers in White and DeJesus, particularly Ricky White. Can the quarterback attack those weak secondary pieces? I think it's certainly possible and probably part of the game plan. Can this Boise State defense be strong enough? I also think that can be the case as well.
The tail of the tape, the team comparisons, these are all over the place. Certain edges for certain teams. Running back, clear nod there to Janty. Quarterback, I'll give it to Hajj Malik Williams. Wide receiver, I think I'll give them the nod as well because Ricky White lifts them up that much, but it's really just 2 guys for them compared to Boise, who has a little bit more depth, so that can certainly be a toss-up. I think it's offensive line. It will be even. D-line, I'll give it in favor of the Broncos. A lot more production in terms of pass rushing and overall presence off the edge. Linebacker and secondary in favor of the Rebels. What do you think of these Mountain West teams?
I think it's a fair, tear out the tape when you look at obviously Janty's going to beat anybody in the country. He's the best running back in the nation, if not the best player. The secondary linebacker, I think, certainly belonged to UNLV as well as wide receiver because Ricky White is just as good of a player. When you look at quarterback, I think it's a little more even, but I would give it to Hajj Malik Williams because he does have that dual threat ability. The O-line is very even on both these teams. The defensive line, definitely a Boise State advantage, but maybe it's a little bit closer than people think.
Now we're going to have the final thoughts in the prediction. Keys to the game for UNLV: hoard the ball, keep clock in favor of you, make some plays in coverage. And Boise, just keep feeding Janty. It's not going to work early on, but if you keep churning away, you'll start to effectively run them down, grind them down, and potentially rip off those big runs that you were so close to in the first meeting. And they got to tackle in space effectively. We just talked about some of those guys in the secondary who certainly don't do that to a high clip. This is a winnable game for UNLV, Nick. It's like a 4-point line. UNLV, I think they'll cover. I think the under will hit. Boise, I think they'll win this game. The winner is going to the college football playoff. Boise has not been that great in some of their games over the past couple of weeks. They weren't really able to pull away from Oregon State when they should have. Wyoming, that was just ugly. Nevada, they were 20-point favorites in that one, only won by 7 at home. And then San Jose State, they pulled away late in what was a competitive game. The last month has not been great for this team, Nick. Time to put up or shut up, though. And even I think UNLV could potentially have them on the ropes. And if this one was in Vegas, I'd probably pick them to win the rematch. I'm going to stick with Boise, though, in this one to get the job done. And a lot of people are not talking about the possibility. If the Rebels win, they are going to the CFP. Just look at the rankings and who else is in consideration. This win will jump you up there. So this is a major game for Barry Odom in this program. If they win it, I would not be shocked one bit. Can't pull the trigger, though.
This is a big game. I can't pull the trigger either. I'm going to take, Boise State here, win by a few more points. I win by 11. I think the script's pretty easy for them. Feed Janty, giving the ball over and over again. I said, probably 40 touches maybe might be what gets the job done in the end. I'm thinking he'll probably get 2 touchdowns in this game. I liked him to have some success. This is not only a rematch from earlier in the year. These two teams did play in the conference title game last year where Boise State won 44-20 out in Allegiant Stadium in the Las Vegas metropolitan area. That was a big win for this team. This Boise State team has 4 Mountain West titles and 3 losses. They won in 2023 and 2019, while UNLV has yet to win a conference title, making their first appearance last year. It was a big step in the right direction for the UNLV Rebels, who were really a bit of a dormant program for the past 40 years or so, and have got themselves back on footing under Barry Odom. They were competitive last year, obviously competitive this year. That loss to Syracuse, no shame in losing to a good team from the ACC, and no shame in losing to Boise State. You can get revenge here, get to the college football playoff of where you are. This is a very good UNLV team. I think they'll keep this game competitive early on because they will stuff Janty. They load the box well. They have good, scheme for him. I think it really works out with that multiple defensive setup they use. At the end of the day, though, I think Janty will find a way to get to his groove, get comfortable in the second half. He'll break a few big runs. It's going to be tough to keep him contained for the entirety of the game, quite frankly, to be honest with you. But once they get that job done, Boise State will pull away late, win this one, and punch their ticket for the college football playoff. Very excited for this matchup, though. This is a great game going down on Saturday, or on the 6th, that is, at Friday night at 8 o'clock. A great matchup going down in Boise State. Weather should be pretty nice. No weather concerns, no snow, nothing like that. About 38 degrees and clear night, so no real concerns on the weather. I like Boise State in this one, though, even though they've been a bit shaky as of late. Give me the Broncos in what should be a phenomenal game to watch.
That's me for today's episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.